Hi, friends. This is Wendy Harrop, and welcome to the Say Yes to Yourself podcast. On the Say Yes to Yourself podcast, you'll hear stories from women just like us who are adding the practice of saying yes in their daily lives in big and small ways, and as a result, are experiencing the truth that everybody wins when you say yes to yourself. Saying yes to yourself is a graceful unfolding, an intentional becoming of the very best version of you. It is my hope that in these conversations, we are able to find our truth and be inspired and empowered to live our very best lives. I'm so excited to go on this journey with you, and I look forward to finding a bit of our own story in each other's. Hello, friends. I'm so glad you're here. And I just have to tell you, I am obsessed. I'm obsessed with my fun and fabulous life. I'm obsessed with the woman I'm becoming. I'm obsessed with these amazing conversations I get to have. Today's guest is Nichole Lee. She has been on the podcast before. She is a wonderful, amazing, brilliant, oh gosh. I have no words. She's gorgeous. She holds the most beautiful, sacred space for you to just, see, I have no words, and yet I have so much to say. Okay, Nichole is amazing. You're going to love her. I love her. She helps me see, recognize, acknowledge, and embody the woman I desire to be. And she did not send me an updated bio, but I think that's a good one. So please enjoy this conversation with my inspiring, fabulous friend, Nichole Lee, and please send me a love note and tell me what your takeaways were, because I don't think you'll be recognizable on the other side of listening to this episode. Nichole Lee, you are one of my favorite humans on the planet. Every single time I talk to you, I am so uplifted, and mic drop after mic drop falls out of your mouth. And I do not say that to put tons of pressure on you, but just to express my joy and your presence in this moment. Thank you for being here.
Oh, Wendy, I love you so much. And I am so appreciative for all your loving words and just who you are, and all of your amazingness. And what's interesting is I reflected back on the picture we took from the retreat that we were part of together. And it just brought me so much joy. So I'm so excited to reconnect with you in this way, because we've always been connected, um, beyond the podcast. But I'm just so grateful to be back on the podcast with you today.
Oh, thank you. And it's true. We met 2 years ago.
Yes. How is it 2 years already?
I know, because it was right before I was going to France for a month.
That's
as
right.
one does, which
Oh,
I've done
yes.
many times since that meeting. However, it was actually just a couple of weeks after my ex-husband moved out.
Mm-hmm.
And I was feeling very much at that time like the embodiment of my future self.
Mm.
And I was so present and aware. I mean, I feel like I am that always, but I recall specifically feeling so in my own body and available for what God had for me, and what was all just going to be full of newness and stepping into the unknown. That was a giant yes for me. And to reflect back on how, like, those things, those tenets are how I live every day now. But
Yeah.
then I was new to making those
Yes.
kinds of decisions and to be really intentional about being intentional. And I'm here to say that mastery comes from repetition. And not that I'm a total master yet, but that's when it starts, you think like, oh my gosh, this is going to be hard, or how am I ever going to be, I don't know, when is this going to come easily to me? And now it's just called my life. Everything that I'm living now used to be the dream.
That is so beautiful. And I'm just so happy for you. Um, it is very interesting, that part of the embodiment and openness to it. So as I listen to you, I think, where many are challenged is the openness.
Mm,
It's making the decision to be open to the possibilities even when you can't see them, right?
right.
And being open to what is going to come. So when I listen to you, I'm just so excited for you, because when I met you, that's what I felt, was this openness. Like, I'm just going to be open. I'm going to be a sponge, right? I'm going to take it all in. And what came to me too is, even with the sponge, we still get to wring out, right? Like, we get to
Mhm.
release what doesn't quite work for us, but being
Mhm.
open to taking those things in can be so powerful for us. And I'm just excited to have witnessed and observed that journey that you've been on, and to be on this side of it, of all those dreams really being a reality, right? It's just is really, really powerful. And for me, you know, I think this is what's beautiful about these conversations is there's different elements of loss and excitement and wonder and curiosity. And so for me, as I was still going through the death of my mother. That was my
Mhm.
loss. That was my separation and shift and catalyst. And I was similarly open to the possibilities of what could come for me. And when I think about the time we were there, I was still not fully embodying my divine mission and role to actually be more out in the world, be more visible, right? I was still shrinking, not in the sense that I didn't think it was possible, but it was so much more cozy, I would say, in the moment to be behind the scenes.
Right.
So when I think about the growth I've had in 2 years, very similarly, I had the dreams, hopes, and desires. I surrendered to them, and I'm living in some of that and more, right, to come, very similarly. So, what is very powerful is that though we were going through different experiences, that element was still the same. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And what I was just talking with a friend before we joined is, you literally can be going through grief and gratitude at the same
Mm.
time,
Mhm.
right? We can literally be dancing with elements of loss while also being grateful for where we are, where we're going, right? At the same time. And I think sometimes society has us feeling conflicted with that.
Mhm.
And I think we're examples of embodying that has gotten us to where we are today.
Oh my gosh, I love you so much. I need to be your neighbor so that we can just
Well, I
have
need to
these.
come to that. I need to come to your
Oh,
amazing. We need to figure that out. So we'll
yes,
table that because we
please.
need to reconnect in person for
Mm.
sure.
Oh my gosh,
Yes.
everything that you said I was reminded of a quote that Tracy Litt says
Mhm.
that we manifest at the
Mhm.
level of safety,
Mhm.
and that there are these times in our life where we are cracked open,
Yes.
and instead of making ourselves smaller, we step into the possibility of the new, and this transformation comes over us.
Mhm.
And the old ceiling becomes our new floor, and now we're
Yes.
operating from this, and it is very beautiful, and it is next level and all of those things. And it comes on the other side of the decision to do something differently.
Yes.
So, of course, I mean, with you, with the death of your mom,
Mm-hmm.
and me, the death of my marriage,
Mm-hmm.
those are kind of irreversible things.
Right.
But there
Yes.
are these micro decisions are coming up just because I feel like it's
That's
compared to
beautiful.
those
Yes.
macros.
Mm-hmm.
For example, and the time of this recording is before my France trips, but the time
Okay.
of airing will be after.
Mm-hmm.
There are women that have said for a couple of years now, I'm going to go on one of your trips. I'm going
Mm-hmm.
to go on the next one. I'm going to go on the next one. I'm going to go on the next one, which is great, fabulous. Like, you're not going to miss out on it because I'm going to keep doing them because I am obsessed with the woman that I become on the other side
Love
of
that.
being there. So you will all have your opportunity to do it. What you are potentially missing out on, though, is that next level of you now.
Ooh,
And
that's good.
right, it's like, let's be her now. Let's
Mm.
make the decisions that I totally have chills. Let's make the decisions that she would make today now. And then we become her. And these are not bucket list items. These are your normal as soon as you decide that this is how your life is going to be. Freedom is a decision away, and we can talk about why we can't have whatever we want all day long. You can lobby for your limitations all day long, or you can do what she would do and then do it.
Mm. Whew. Yes. And I would love to go back to what you said that is so powerful is the safety component.
Mhm.
It's amazing how when we become more self-aware, when we actually take that time to look at her, right, from
Mhm.
our own vantage point, we start to realize that some of the limitations that we've created is because we didn't feel safe
That's right.
and that we had not taken an intentional focus on looking at the individuals that were in our life to help us get to that place that those decisions become easier to make.
That's
So when
right.
I think about when we met, the energy in itself, some people knew each other, some people didn't. I didn't know anyone, right? The energy in that room felt safe.
Mhm.
So instantly, I felt safe being accountable to how I was lobbying my limitations,
Mhm.
right? I felt safe being vulnerable and exposing even elements of myself that I may have held on to in that space. And so I just wanted to circle back to that because I think, anyone who's listening, perhaps it's taking an inventory of how many people you have in your life that are either contributing to that expansion or contributing to that contraction,
Mhm.
right? Because I think that's where sometimes we do more lobbying because we don't realize some of the people that we're talking, they're lobbying too. We're
Mhm.
just, we're just in a limitation dance with half of the people we're connected with. So that was something that I was listening to was a key component that I
Yeah.
think sometimes we don't take that time to reflect on. And that
Right.
was really helpful for me of like, wow, I actually wasn't in as many environments that were challenging me to thrive, challenge
Mm.
me to show up differently, challenging me to go against status quo, challenging me to be in my self agency and authority. So then to your point, once I'm aware of that, what do I do with it?
That's
I
right.
alter my environment. I alter who I speak with. I shift my boundaries and I hold myself accountable to making that woman real today,
Mhm.
right? Then going back, tracking into the woman that I know that I don't want to be.
Exactly. I
Yeah.
love all of that. And we talk so much about this on the podcast about curating the community you desire.
Yes.
So I am only available for conversations like this. And I am not kidding you. This is no exaggeration. These are the only conversations I have.
That's powerful.
I mean, it happens in the grocery store. And if I get a vibe that it's not going to be that kind of experience, I go to self-checkout. But I am the vibrational match for these kinds of conversations, and they are being drawn to me.
Yes.
And if I sit on a plane next to a person, most often we are in this kind of conversation the entire flight, or no words are spoken.
I love that power of it's interesting. It puts a new lens on self mastery because mastering self is also knowing self, but also recognizing that you have much more dominion and control of things around you than you probably consider, again, until you get intentional, right? Because you can say, listen, I am looking for my vibrational match. Right. And when I'm not sensing and feeling that, that's the embodiment though. So like we think about how many times we've been taught to disconnect from the body. We're literally an energy pathway. We've got antenna, right? Antennae, or however you say that word. But like what you're saying is I'm tapping into the frequency. And as a result, I'm controlling that. When it doesn't feel right, I'm the one who's moving and shifting, right? I'm not waiting for the person to move or shift. I'm going to do that. And I think that's really powerful because I'm similar where I look at that. I also recognize just knowing how much we're energy beings, how much I can literally shift the environment I'm in.
Yes.
Right. So if I come in with joy and I come in with a happiness, if I'm acknowledging the cashier, I can literally shift the energy. So that's the other cool part of it, right? Is like, ooh, if I want more joy and happiness in the world, why don't I just drop a little more joy and happiness, over here, right? And we don't always see it. I think that's the other thing. We've been taught that like we must see it instantly. You don't know the seed you've planted. You don't always see it bloom. And you know this, Wendy, because that's that's one of your genius, one of the things you're a genius in. But when you look at certain things like that, you're like, we're so thinking we're going to get this instant gratification or instant response, but you have no idea the impact you make by just making that conscious decision.
Right? It's so true. It's so true. And sometimes it can feel like, oh, well, that's really nice for you, Wendy, but I can't just get a divorce and have only one child. So it's not, living on a farm. But we actually, I think, first of all, we can acknowledge that we have way more power than we think we do. And we can invite the others in our life to up level with us.
Yes.
We can have courageous conversations that start with, this relationship is over. Are you interested in starting a new one that is based on love and kindness and growth and respect and whatever you want to build this new relationship on? And in that practice, there is a closing of a door. So if you are going to start a new relationship without changing the players, we must change how we are showing up in that relationship, in that space. So letting go of anything that is the drum that we're beating of why this person doesn't deserve to be in a relationship with fabulous me. And, this is any friendships or anything. And also asking them, like, what would make this an ideal friendship for you? And having these conversations or just doing that energetically and finding out for yourself that this friendship, this relationship is not the vibrational match of who I am now, and most certainly not who I am becoming.
Mhm.
And it's time to complete. And that feels really scary. And it is necessary for our growth and expansion to be course correcting, to be following our leading and intention and got inner guidance, and knowing that that person, if that is a relationship that is for both of your highest and best, will answer that call, will answer that invitation to step up with you, or will thank you because they didn't have the courage to complete.
Yeah. And I love to go back to what you were saying too, where, others may be looking at your life and saying, like you said, I can't just get out of the marriage quickly, or, it's not just that I have one child. And I think what is so helpful is recognizing too that it is your own personal journey, and we've been
Right.
constantly conditioned to compare,
Mm-hmm.
and go in this comparison journey that we aren't looking at the parts that we can control. And I love when you were saying these micro elements, these micro bites, like what I've always invited friends and clients to: what are the few things you can do to shift the needle, right? To move the needle. So if you feel at this point in time, based on all the realities, because that's the thing that we're talking about reality also with our dreams, to manifest new. So with all your realities that are going on, whether you can't leave the relationship quickly, there's financial constraints, there are literal realities going on. What are the components that you can do?
That's right.
Where can you start? Is it looking at yourself and being more aware of what's not serving you that you're doing to yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's not going with the others, but maybe it's having those conversations with self. Maybe it is looking at how you can treat yourself better, or it is getting a therapist because you've had deep traumas that perhaps you haven't processed through that now you're ready to, or it is looking at your circle of friends, right? Or it is that you haven't created some type of self care protocol. But like, where can we start that
Mm-hmm.
feels nourishing and good to you, that helps you get on that path of accelerating the process? Because the first thing is,
Absolutely.
let's get you on the path. Let's get you on the road, right? Some are like, I
Right.
like the yellow brick road, right? Like they're like, I'm not even on the road, Nichole. Like I'm sitting on the side with a flat tire, right? Like this one.
Mm-hmm.
So what do we do to get you on the road? Is it getting you out of the car and you're just standing there and taking a few deep breaths?
Mm-hmm.
So I just invite folks that like looking at those elements for yourself and recognizing that we are all on unique journeys, and there will not be something that is one size fits all. And what I will add too is, when you are looking at others, instead of comparing, where is the inspiration that you can pull from it?
Mm-hmm. I love that. And thank you for that clarification. It 100% starts with the internal work.
Mhm.
Changing your address, that's just geography. There's
Yes, for
no,
sure.
it's, you know, just trying to manage the deck chairs on the Titanic is not going to
Yes.
keep this ship from sinking. So
Yes.
it's doing that internal work of what is the better feeling thought?
Mhm.
What is the thing that I can do for myself that's just going to raise my vibration 1 degree? We've talked before about um, Abraham Hicks and
Mhm.
the emotional scale, and
Mhm.
you can't go from hopelessness to joy. It's too big. It's like jumping over a house. Like you can't get there from here. And sustain it. You can't get there from here in a sustainable way. But can you move from hopelessness to anger? That is actually up the emotional scale. And maybe people won't like it that
Mhm.
you're just angry now, but you're moving up that scale and just choosing a better feeling thought, choosing a better feeling pair of pants, a better feeling meal, a better, just something that gives you the instant gratification
Mhm.
because you are experiencing all the benefits. And once we collectively learn to manage this vessel,
Mhm.
first thing that will happen is we don't attract what we want, we attract what we are. So if you feel like you're always in bad traffic with drivers that are mean and people that are rude to you at the store and rude to you at home, okay, so let's shift the magnet on that. And as we are becoming her now, then we are going to just start drawing new opportunities to us, but new experiences to us that are the match. We are a magnet. It's not that these manifestation principles only work for the good things that you want.
Mhm.
They are always working. So
Mhm.
it's not, oh, we're going to turn thoughts into things and have that chateau in France. Like, all of my thoughts have already turned into the things that are around me right now, because that is how this works. So if we are in an experience that we don't like the things that our thoughts have created, that we can start that process of choosing the better feeling thought.
Yeah, and I would love to just add to what you shared that I found helpful for folks that may just be even newer on the journey.
Mm-hmm.
Is it was interesting when I was looking at emotions and feelings, and it's a lot of what you just talked about, that scale and vibrational element, is remembering that literally the word emotion means energy in motion, right?
Yeah.
So just imagine, what I invite folks is to imagine yourself at an element of hopelessness. How much energy do you feel you have? You can feel the heaviness, right? You
Mm-hmm.
can literally say that's how you connect some of the kind of logical things to the body, right? Because it's getting back in the body. Like, we know what it feels like for that hopelessness. We know that there isn't as much energy. We know we want to maybe stay in bed or whatever, right? So that's how you can start looking at your emotions and connecting them to your body. If
Mm-hmm.
I was to say, I invite you to think of a time that you were joyous and you had joy, you can sense and feel your body starts changing. Maybe your heart, races a little bit more. So I always invite folks to, like, at the simplest form of like thinking of it that way. And then by adding to that is thinking about how many times you did not allow that energy, emotions
Mm-hmm.
to come out of the body. So if you've had a lot of that heaviness, it's energetically being held down in you, which then makes that vibrational attachment much more difficult for
Mm.
people that you desire to be connected to.
Mm-hmm.
So part of the key of releasing that and expressing in the way that it desires is to amplify and expand your energy field.
Yes. And you are so beautiful at leading people into those shifts.
Mhm.
Because, I mean, for a lot of people, me front of the line, I
Mhm.
don't do this for myself. I surround myself with mentors and healers and energy people that are leading me, where I just show up because
Mhm.
my commitment to myself is real,
Mhm.
and I show up for the things that are on my calendar. And so I make a Zoom call with you, and I come again with that open heart,
Mhm.
and you say hello to me, and then you invite me to shut my eyes. And then you lead me through this beautiful, gorgeous practice that is beautiful and gorgeous because of the element of safety that we talked about before, because you hold safe space for me.
Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. And an openness to receive, and a trust in the divine that this better feeling is for my highest and best, that the better feeling precedes the better situation, which precedes the better life, which precedes the better legacy. You know, all of these things are building blocks, but it comes because of trust and availability and safety. So how do you do the magic things that you do that aren't magic, but how are you able to hold such sacred space for others?
So first, I want to thank you for your beautiful words and acknowledging that part of holding the safe space is also the connection and desire for the people that I work with, that's what they're looking for. So there's like, so when we look at that vibration, right, there's this vibrational connection that says, I desire that and I sense and feel that I can create it. And sometimes that's not as easy to explain because, like, we're talking about frequencies and vibrations and things of that nature. So I just wanted to honor you because of your openness, because of your curiosity, because of your desire to continue growing and expanding is why also so many shifts happen with the people that are in your life. Because the other part that I've come to realize, I'm just a facilitator, right? And sometimes when we hear the words healer, people are like, are they doing stuff to me, you know, on me, around me, right? And really what we are facilitators of helping those who have already made a conscious or unconscious decision that they desire someone to help navigate them through what their mind, body, and spirit already knows.
It's
And
that
so,
vibrational match.
yes, yep, it's that piece. And so, how I've come to get to the place that I am, that I have more capacity and capability to do that, is through the work that I did on myself. And so, as I invested in myself and surrendered to that and the things around emotions and clearing that, and what you talked about, your thoughts and your feelings, as that was more cleared for me and I lived in an abundance of love and overflow, that naturally started to be the way that I could show up, whether it's in a store or with a client. And so, I would say that was the greatest gift I could give to myself, to be able to serve others, was to do that. I have found over the years, because of doing that, I have even more abundant space and capacity, because sometimes people ask, like, how can you keep doing this? Right. Because some of my clients, and not in our case, right, was more of that, just creating more bliss. But however, I do work with some clients that have very deep traumatic experiences, a lot of heaviness. And where that's come from is me having that overflow experience, and they feel that, and being in a space where you don't have to say anything and just feel love, feel cared for, is also something that I offer. So it's not always about saying something, it's not always about um going through steps. Sometimes it's literally having the space to be. So I know I kind of went in a few different ways of explaining that, because I was really trying to really internalize a way that I could express it. But I think that that's really how I am in a nutshell, is because of the work I've done. And you just helped me realize too, I say surrender quite a bit. It was also surrendering to that was my gift. I almost forgot that.
Mhm.
I was afraid of the gift that had been given to me. And it was more around the responsibility of creating
Mm,
that space.
mm,
And when I
mm.
realized it was less about the responsibility of me and more me surrendering to the responsibility of my divine assignment to hold the space, the more I was able to hold the space, the
Oh my
more it
gosh.
naturally felt safe because I felt safe in my divine assignment,
Right.
right?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So thank you for
Ah,
letting me get there because some of the things that we know are just natural,
yeah.
intuitive downloads, but I got there. I got there.
Mm.
Thank you, Wendy.
Oh my gosh. Thank you. And it's so beautiful because you answered the question beautifully
Oh, thank
because
you.
it's not a linear answer.
It's
It
not. Yeah.
is, it's all of your being.
Mm-hmm.
And so holding space for another being, it's not going to be the same where, oh, I have office hours from 9 to 4 and you wait
Exactly.
in the waiting room and then you come sit on my couch and then I ask you something and you talk and then you get up and come back next week. It's not like that. It's very, it has so much presence and intention, and surrender I think is the key word, because
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we hear that word and think that means we have to surrender our dream or
Right.
give up that thing we really want. That is not what I have come to understand surrender as. Surrender is not giving up, it's giving over. It's
Yes. And giving
I,
it.
right,
Yes.
like I desire this thing, and the how is not my responsibility. So God, I'm moving that to your side of the to-do list, and I'm prepared to be surprised and delighted by how you bring this about, and whether it looks, quote unquote, exactly like what I thought, chances are no. And I think if the choices are an eternal infinite being or Wendy Harrop, I mean, let's go with option A, because it's going to be immeasurably more than all I asked for or imagined, because
Right.
that is how he does it. And it's also surrendering the resistance
Yes.
to how this has to play out. So when I surrender, for example, no, my listeners are no stranger to this desire that I desire a chateau in France. And even though I actually have the address of a chateau in France that I believe belongs to me and will belong to me in my current reality, I am also, I know that God's not mean. And I know He doesn't just allow me to want things that I can't have. And
Yes.
I also know that it is the chateau that I have the address for or something better. And I have surrendered that desire in the sense that I have surrendered my resistance to how, and I have given it over to God's side of the to do list. And I'm just available for how that comes and how that manifests, and how you all listening can come and visit me there, because it's going to be amazing.
I can't wait.
It's going to be
Yes.
fabulous.
And it's so powerful, Wendy. Just taking in all that you said. And I love that when we talk about some of these words that perhaps other people have placed definitions for us that we get to redefine, right? And surrender doesn't feel painful. Surrender means leaning into it, right? Like giving in and giving over. What also comes to me is letting go of that ego part of us,
Mm-hmm.
right? That thinks it knows best, and the internal heart of us that knows best. So, one of the things that I have gone through is like my mind is this wonderful thing, but it's going to constantly want to give me evidence of what it already knows, right?
Correct.
But my heart is infinite in knowing beyond. That's the wisdom. So part of my surrender was actually recalibrating that, right? And saying, I know that the divine part of my heart and God's heart are connected. So I'm co-creating something that to be. So I'm going to surrender that part. I'm going to, yes, right? Like the full-fledged yes to it all. And the other thing that came to me too when you were talking that may be helpful, because I love when you use desire. Desire something we, even if we haven't had it, we get a sense of it. Again, it's much more of the embodiment of it.
Mhm.
Sometimes when we use the word want, it's been so tied to something lacking in our
Right.
lives, a separation for something. So perhaps with those who may be still using want, and again, the embodiment feeling like it's something's missing or a reminder of lack or a reminder of a negative connection to it, shift to desire and see how you feel,
Mm, I love that.
right? Because it's like if you've had, you've had that you want the chateau, but you've been to France, so you know what that feels like. Though that desire is just amplified, right?
Right.
So it's just something I've just thought about because again, there are certain words that whether it's from our upbringing or societal norms and things of that nature that aren't serving us. And we have the authority to reframe,
Mhm.
renew, or recreate anything that we desire that's going to work for us. Right. So if that word's not working, find you a new word, sister.
That's right.
I'll give you a prime example. I don't use the word homework, I call it love work
Mm,
or play work or um designing your life, right? Like what's something that feels good that you're going to lean into that
mm,
helps you shift into that ownership of your life. If you're
right.
still using language and words that someone else gave to you that isn't fitting, this is your opportunity to shift it.
Mm. Yes, please. See,
Yes,
I told
please.
you
I'll take a
about.
slice of that,
Mm,
please.
I will have
A
salad
slice of my
and
power.
fries. Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, and it's so beautiful. It reminds me of what James Clear said in Atomic Habits,
Mm,
how each of these things, it's not, oh my gosh, I have to go to the gym. It's, I want to be the person that goes to the gym.
mhm,
So doing this habit is a vote for the person I am becoming.
mhm.
And that's how we're reframing
Yes,
all of these
I
things.
choose to go to the gym because it has been my decision that I want to X.
Right.
And
I
what's
want to feel great in my
I want to
body.
feel
I
great
want,
and I'm going to sit with it and I know how great I feel. So the interesting thing too about this is it's important for us to connect the thought and the feeling. We've also been taught to
absolutely.
keep them separate from each other. However, we think about some of the most powerful times in our life, good or bad or negative, what didn't feel so great. There was a thought and a feeling tied to it.
Yep.
Right. So if we think of our favorite song, there are usually memories tied to it. It's why it feels so good. The brain actually also prioritizes based on how we felt about certain things
Mm,
or tied to how we felt about the person who gave us or supported those thoughts. So when you
interesting.
start to look at that as well, is why it's so important that language is so important. If I say I choose to work out versus I have to,
Hmm.
if you've constantly been pressured around having to do things, having to perform, having to show up, your brain and body starts to remember all of those negative things tied to that new thing you want to do.
Right. Oh my gosh.
If you say, I choose to do this for me, or I know Wendy's cheering me on, I'm going to text her as soon as I get done with this
Yes,
workout,
yes,
it tells the
yes.
brain and body to be like, ooh, maybe we want to do this.
Yep.
Right. So those are just little nuances that
Hmm.
sometimes we weren't really educated on that
Right.
really can help us with those quick shifts in our lives.
Absolutely. And we were we were informed by another person.
Yes,
So that's not always going to work because they're
exactly.
not inside of our bodies.
Yes.
I'm very new to human design and kind of
Yay!
understanding that. Yes, yes. So what I know is that I'm a generator, and what I know is that my authority is emotion,
Mhm.
and or emotional is my authority.
Okay.
So my whole life, I've heard from way more people than my parents that you can't trust your emotions. You trust the facts,
Wow.
right?
Yep.
Like, actually, my design of this human
Your
is
superpower is to
right,
be
is the emotion. Now, the thing that I get to practice is that with emotional authority, and the authorities are just the different ways that you make decisions in your
Mhm,
life. There's, there's other ones, but I only
mhm.
know mine. But with the emotional, it comes as a wave. And so my tendency is to make my decision when I'm at the crest of the wave,
Okay.
because that feels really good or
Mhm.
it feels really bad. But what my practice and what I'm leaning into is I'm allowing that wave to crash, and then I make my decision on the calm water after. But I do not discount what the crest of the wave felt like.
Okay.
Like, I trust that, but I don't make my decision from that place. Now, at this point in my life, at the time of this recording, those are words. And I understand that concept, but I don't understand it in practice yet. Similarly
Gotcha.
to, apparently there are people that are introverts, and I understand that in concept, but I understand that in words. Actually, I do not understand that in concept because it is not my practice.
Gotcha. Yeah, so that is very interesting. When you were saying that, I literally saw the wave.
Mhm.
And I'm not a surfer. However, I could sense when you're high up on the wave, there's so much going on that perhaps it doesn't allow for as much clarity because it's so exciting up there, right? The adrenaline and everything.
Yeah.
So it's might be like, oh, I might be missing some things.
Mm-hmm.
But when you crash, it's like, oh, that's an overflow, right? And you're trying to kind of swim back up. So what I sense is like just literally on that even keel, I literally see where you can see the sky, you can smell the air, you can feel it on your skin that
Right.
then says, ah, that's what I want to do. Like that's what visualize. And the reason why I
Right.
share that, what's interesting is I'm a projector.
Mm.
So I take in information, right? I see things. I'm very penetrating with individuals and connecting with them. And so it was very funny you saying that because I just went right went to my little projector
Well,
mode.
right. Because your
And my
job is to see
Yes.
something and then
Yes, and
fix
see
it.
the themes. Yes, see the themes. I'm the optimizer, I'm the
Yep.
integrator. We're very much better also in person because we want to absorb all of you. What's interesting too is that I'm a splenic authority. So
Mm-hmm.
just even what I really appreciate you sharing this because it'll help explain even our conversation with someone who, if they're in the human design, will understand. So much of what I move is an intuitive
Right.
energy, right? It's the splenic authority, which is not always logical, right?
It's
From
never
that
logical.
never logical, right? So it's interesting that you say that. So, and I will say one thing that's been very fascinating with that too is how I am to connect with people, and you'll laugh at this, Wendy, is to wait for the invitation.
I know. I just learned that when you're the helper, right? Like, I'm
Yes,
a 2 on the
but I have
Enneagram is
to
a
wait.
helper. Like, I help people without them asking.
Yes, so that's a difference. Yes, we have to wait for invitation. So this is the thing that's very interesting. So when you were asking about like holding space and things of that nature, the journey I had to go on knowing that I was a projector, I am not to insert myself though. That can be it can be taken as over assertive, it could be uncomfortable. So what's interesting, that's why I say is a vibration. People have to invite me in, and then when you invite me in, I get to see all the things to help you.
That's
But
right.
that's where the safety is the invitation. So
Oh my
it's
gosh.
beautiful, that full circle. Yes, once someone's invited me in, there's this element of safety and
Right.
then there's a connection. But yes, I
Right.
am not to I have to be very cautious, and that's the part I'm working on based on when this recording. I've
Yep.
done a lot of work on, because projectors, we see things and we just want to tell you. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I see that's broken over there, or
Right.
I see you
This
could
is
do
how you
this.
could fix it.
But we're supposed to wait for you to open the door, not
Yes.
knock on it and pull the door open.
Well, and I just
Keep our
want
little
to
head in on you.
right? I want to reflect back to you. I really appreciate you mentioning the surfer
Mm,
because to me, and speaking earlier about word choice and how
mhm.
we can redefine or shift it, when someone says wait for the wave to crash and then make a decision, it's like that sounds disastrous. I don't want that.
Yeah.
But when you said the surfer, like that's so I'm just supposed to ride the wave, and
Yes.
after
And
I'm
when it's
done riding
smooth,
that wave
yeah.
and
There
I'm
we
like
go.
in it and I'm like, oh my gosh, I surf, and now I'm going to make a decision, that
Yes.
feels so much better to me, so thank you.
You are so well, because to your point, I saw the other side. If it's crashing, it's overwhelming. But if you've gone through that and you're just hanging out
Right.
and just feeling it all and you feel very balanced on that wave, then the
Oh,
decisions feel much more grounded, is what came to me. Yeah.
right, I
Because even
love
being
that.
high, too high, like even
Mm-hmm.
overjoy is a
Mm-hmm.
lot. We don't typically make great decisions when we're overjoyed. I
Right.
mean, that's the kind of funny thing. We think about some of the higher vibrational
Right.
emotions, but if I'm like, I'm not probably going to make a good decision either,
Right,
right? Like,
hence the chapels in Las Vegas. Right.
right.
Exactly.
Right?
Well,
Because so it's the same kind of thing. Like we think sometimes, even with the grand emotions, if someone's overjoyed and they're tears and they're crying for, a surprise party, they're like, hold on, I can't think, right? It's still beautiful, but that's probably not the time to ask them to sign some legal papers. You know what I'm saying?
exactly.
To buy a
Oh my
house or something.
gosh.
Like that's probably not it. It's probably when
Right?
they calm down, take a few deep breaths, add a sip of water.
I love that so much. And I'm really appreciative, Nichole, because I have this sticky note that says I'm supposed to have a 48-hour waiting period before I make a decision, which is like,
Okay.
ugh. That's so yucky to me that I had to write it down and make it in really pretty faux calligraphy so I wouldn't get mad at looking at it. And I'm going to change it. I'm going to make a
Mm,
new one and it just says ride the wave because it
mhm.
means exactly the same thing, but it feels 1,000% better in my body, which
See?
is
Yeah.
the whole thing we've been talking about.
Yes. And I will add to this too, just what you were saying. Everything is a guideline. We get to define the rule.
Mm,
So what came to me for you is that 48 is a guideline. There are
mhm,
certain things that are going to flow into your body and you're going to feel really good on that wave, and it could come in 20 minutes,
mhm,
24 or 48. So I think
mhm.
that's the other thing that we learn as we get into our own levels of discernment and connection, that they're guidelines, they're frameworks, right? All the things that we
Right.
learn in books and whether it's podcasts, they're all guidelines and frameworks, but the truth really is in us,
Mm,
really
oh my
lies within us,
gosh.
right? So there's going to be times you're like, nope, 24, it's good. I'm making a decision. I feel great in it. I feel grounded in my body. Great. I'm
Oh,
doing it.
I love this so much. Okay. Now, this is terrible because I haven't even asked you the question I'm supposed to ask you.
What is
So,
that
if
question?
we have to turn this into two podcast episodes, that's totally fine. But how are you saying yes to yourself in this season?
Oh my gosh.
I know.
I am saying yes to myself in this season of saying yes to all the beautiful opportunities, expansiveness. I'm in this big mode of creationship. Like, how do I create more with others? And so that's, I think, where my season has shifted. I had to do a lot more of that inner work, right, to then support others. And now it's a beautiful dance of inner and outer and connection and community. Because the
Mm,
yes, the amplified yes is things like this,
mhm.
right? Like that is yes to my soul of how do we expand collectively. So that is the season I'm in, is this collective yes,
Oh
while
my
I'm also doing
gosh.
my individual, roller skating around the world.
Mm. It's so beautiful. Oh my gosh. So I'm certain that everybody is now as obsessed with you as I
Oh,
am. So
Wendy.
tell everyone where they can find and follow you, what
Yes.
you're offering, how they can engage with your magic, all the goodness.
Oh, thank you. Yes. So I can be found on Instagram and LinkedIn. Both are I am Nichole Lee. And I know it'll be in the show notes because I have an H in my name. But those are the main platforms. And then you can go directly to my website at nicholee.love, Love. That
Of
is
course.
my domain name. And you can schedule a call with me, a connection call. Let's talk. It could just be to talk about maybe some of the things on the podcast. If you're looking for additional resources and support, all the things. I just love connecting with individuals. It could be a partnership or some creationship that comes out of it, but you can just go right to the top of the page, book a connection call, and we can go from there.
Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. Time with you is always too short. I love you
I
so
love you
much.
too.
Thank you
Thank
for
you,
coming
Wendy.
back, and thank you for being you.
Thank you, Wendy.
I hope you enjoyed that conversation as much as I did. As always, any links or notes mentioned can be found at phineaswrighthouse.com in the podcast section of our site or in the show notes below. And if you haven't connected with me personally, come find me on Instagram at Phineas Wrighthouse and let me know you listened to this episode. I'd love to get to know you. Thank you for sharing this time with me. I know your days are full, and I'm really grateful that you chose to spend some of your precious time right here. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast so you don't miss any of these delightful conversations. I'll see you next week.